I'm Heather from Here Booktubes, and today is fantasy romance recommendations. I was a YA fantasy reader for a long time, and so making the jump from fantasy to romance, obviously a lot of that involved fantasy romance. For the amount of fantasy romance books that I hear of that I'm like, oh, that sounds so good, compared to the ones that I actually read, it's a pretty low percentage currently. But I have read a lot in the past. I do love it. It is just one of those things that's just that perfect combination. I'm going to start out with a novella, the only novella on the list, and that is the Midwinter Mail Order Bride. First of all, there's this cover, and it is so hot, and I love it, and that's why I picked up this book. Turns out it's fantastic. Also, it's by Kati Wilde. I love this novella so much. So this girl is a princess and she's going to have an arranged marriage with this king who's known as a barbarian. Her plan is to save her people. Her plan is to kill him. Well, things don't go according to plan, and basically the first words out of her mouth to him are, "I'm gonna kill you," and he's like so attracted to her, but he wants a willing wife. He wants somebody who wants to be with him. So he says, no, I'm not gonna marry you, and takes her back to her kingdom. But he doesn't just send her to her kingdom, he takes her. So it's the two of them on a journey, and I just love it. I also kind of love some of the themes that are going on in here. It is the perfect fantasy romance novella. Like, I just loved everything about it. It was quick, it was action-packed, it had plot, it had the couple. It was just the perfect balance of everything. I just really loved it a lot. You should read it. Next I have Radiance by Draven. Now this has gotten a huge buzz on BookTube lately, but I read it many years ago and it is a fantastic fantasy romance. I've seen it advertised as enemies to lovers and as friends to lovers. I picked it off of the enemies to lovers list on Goodreads. That's how I ended up reading it. It's not really enemies to lovers. Their peoples are kind of enemies and they don't understand each other and they don't know a lot about each other, but their marriage is an arranged marriage as part of an alliance between their peoples. So they are different species. The girl is human and the guy is the species who are active at night. They're gray, their eyes are all one color. They're freaked out by human eyes and the whiteness around them. And so they find each other completely repulsive, which is, they keep hearing over and over again how it's such a shame because like he's very attractive for his species and she is very attractive for her species, but they don't like how each other look. I love this book, and part of why I love this book is because they are nice to each other from the very first moment. They're like, you know what? We're gonna be stuck with each other. It's nice that you're not a raging lunatic. Everything will be better if we are kind to one another. And I love that because it's such common sense. It's like you're gonna be married to this person for a long time. Just because you didn't have a say in it doesn't mean that your life has to be terrible. Now, I'm happy my marriage was not arranged, but nonetheless, you know where I'm going with this. So it's really friends to lovers, and there's not much plot in this first book. It's almost like a domestic fantasy, but there are definitely elements. I really enjoyed the characters. They were fantastic. They were amazing to each other and to other people, and they weren't dumb and they weren't annoying, and I love them. Next I had Fantastical, which is the first in the Fantasyland series by Kristen. This series is such a cool premise. It's a parallel universe. So our main character, our heroine, is from modern day world. And she's going to this parallel universe, which would be fantasy, kind of medieval-ish, 15th century, 17th century, like the different countries are kind of based off of different things. So like the third book is possibly my favorite book. It's very much Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones. There's a lot of craziness. Now, it's very important to make note of the fact that all of the love interests in this series, they are the leaders of their country. So they're alpha, they're used to being in charge, they're kings and warlords, yada, yada, yada. And they are a product of their society. So there are things that they do to their women, for their women, just the way they treat their women in general, that are not present in Kristen Ashley's contemporary novels and would not be okay in a contemporary love interest. But I just think it's important to note that they're a product of their society, and obviously you have this modern woman going and she's like, that's not okay, and they're like, yeah, it is okay. So there's different triggers for each and every one of the books in the series. The first one is probably the mildest, although they have very much a hate to love relationship, because in the parallel universe, the person who's switching is taking the place of their doppelganger. So in this first book, she's taking the place of kind of an ice princess personality who is a princess. She shows up on the wedding day and he is already like thrown off because he's like, this isn't how she acts at all. But that doesn't stop him from like not being happy with her, not wanting to have anything to do with her because he hates her doppelganger. All this is explored in the series and I think it's really well done, but just be aware if you don't like alphas at all, then you might not like this series. Next we have the Winter King. The series is Weathermages of Mystral. I really like C.L. Wilson as an author. However, I have one big disclaimer, and that is that often you get the villain's point of view and like what they're planning, and the main character doesn't know, and you know, and it stresses me out so much. So if you hate that, maybe skip it. The princess is the unwanted daughter of this Summerland, and all of the princesses have weather powers, and she's being married to the king of the, you know, ice winter people, that type of thing. It's hate to love. This girl is like treated so poorly and you just want her to be happy and you want to like beat the hero over the head because like he's not instantly doing everything that he should and you're just so mad. But it gets there, it's good, and the princesses are fascinating and powerful in their own right. Each princess does end up getting her own book, although I don't think that the series is completed yet. It's fantastic. Last, and this might be my #1 recommendation, all the books by Sarah J. Maas. Even more specifically, A Court of Thorns and Roses. This is my favorite fantasy romance of all time. I know that gets talked about on BookTube constantly. However, I picked up Sarah J. Maas randomly in the library. I liked the cover of Throne of Glass, and that was why I picked it up. Fell in love, binge read all of Throne of Glass, and turns out Empire of Storms was the last book out at the time. So that did not pan out in my favor if you've read Empire of Storms. So then I didn't read A Court of Thorns and Roses for forever because I had the complete wrong synopsis in my head. I don't know what book I was thinking, but it wasn't that one. And I didn't think my library had it because it was shelved in the adult section, not the YA. So I would go to the math section where Throne of Glass was, and there was no Court of Thorns and Roses. I love it so much. So Farah is just your average villager peasant, and she is hunting in the woods. She kills a wolf who turns out to be a fairy, and his fairy lord comes and demands payment. So life for a life, she has to go live with him in fairy, and things develop from there. The fae are incredibly attractive, they're nuanced. You want to see a clever girl going against the fae, falling in love with the fae, trying to figure out how to move in their world. I love everything about this series. Everything about the series. I'm not saying that's without fault, but I'm just saying for my taste and preferences and what I want in a fantasy romance, this checked all the boxes the whole entire way. So if you like fae, I don't see how you wouldn't love this book. So that's it. That's my recommendations for fantasy romance. Let me know what you think. Have you read these? Do you have other recommendations for me? It's a fun genre. It's just a great one to pick up when you're not sure what to read. So I hope you read and enjoy. I will have another romance video in a few days. I think the next one might be my June wrap up. But Thanks. Bye.